Hi there. Alright, so we have added all these buttons over here. Okay, so the first button is the only one that is working. Now the second button would be the add a single arrow line button. Alright, so let's add an image to this button over here. So over here, okay, so this add single arrow line button, we can do it. We can add the image, upload the image in the CSS. So over here, so content, oops, content, so URL, and this will be images, and it would be, let's see, so alright, so single arrowhead line dot png. Okay, so now going back to our site over here. Alright, so then we have this arrowhead line. Okay, so now we will learn how to add this single arrow line on our canvas. Alright, so let's get started. So on our main JS, what we have to do is to declare, alright, well, not declare, define the document of the button. So the ID is this adding single arrow line button. So let's do that. We can say let, okay, so adding single arrow line button equals to document dot get element by ID. So this is the ID. Okay, I think I want to put this way above, right? So let's put it with the adding line button as well. Okay, so over here what we need to do is to add an event listener to this button. Okay, so let's do that. All right, so adding single arrow line button dot add event listener, and this would be a click event, and it would activate adding single arrow line. All right, so let's just copy this down, and let's write the function for this. So what do we want to do for this? Well, it's actually quite similar to the adding line button. So what we had was this let adding line button click equals to false. So we can have this as well. All right, so I can actually put this above here, and this will be adding single arrow line button click, okay, will be equals to false. So we can copy almost the same. All right, so in our activate adding line we have this, if this adding line button click is equals to false. So we have if adding single arrow line button click is equals to false. All right, we want this to be true. Okay, so when this is true, and now we must have these three events over here. Okay, so let's add them. So canvas dot on. So we can actually group all these events together. All right, so the first one is mouse down. Oops, mouse down. Okay, and we can say it start adding single arrow line. All right, the second one would be mouse move. All right, and this will be start drawing single arrow line. And the next one, okay, will be a mouse up event. So mouse up event. So this would be a stop drawing single arrow line. All right, so we have all these events over here. So let's comment these two out first, all right, because we would not be writing these functions yet, or we can also have an empty function for this. All right, so let's have all these functions. All right, so the first one is this. Okay, and we have two more of this, but this now would be start drawing. Okay, and this would be stop drawing. All right, so now what we have to do is to figure out, okay, what do we want to do when we press our mouse down. Okay, so when we press our mouse down, this mouse down event will fire. So what kind of code do we want to execute? All right, so since it's a single arrow line, there are actually two things that we need to add. All right, the line and the arrow. Okay, the arrowhead. So for the line, we can just copy all this over here. All right, start adding line. So you can copy all of this code over here. Okay, copy it down over here, and this is O, and there are some variables that I need to bring it up. Okay, so over here I can bring all these variables up. All right, so let me explain. Okay, so when we start adding the single arrow line, all right, our mouse down will be true. Initially mouse down is false. Okay, and we have the pointer over here. All right, the pointer can help us find out where exactly our cursor is. So when we add the line, okay, the line will be added from where the cursor is to that same point. All right, because it's just a mouse down event, and that's why the line is actually just a point. Okay, so we have all these properties over here. Now for the ID, all right, for the ID, we can change the ID to something else. Let's say single arrow line over here. All right, and we add the line. Okay, but since this is a single arrow line, we also have to add the arrow. All right, the arrowhead. Okay, so we have to have this let arrowhead 1. Okay, so I define, well, I've not yet defined this arrowhead 1. Okay, but this is a variable arrowhead 1, and arrowhead 1, okay, we can write it down over here. All right, so arrowhead 1 would be actually in the shape of a triangle. Okay, so new fabric dot polygon. Okay, so we use this polygon, all right, to create our arrow. Okay, so this is how it's done. We have a few points that we need to put in. All right, so the first point over here would be x1. Okay, what is it? And y1. Sorry, it shouldn't be x1, it's just x. Yes, it's just x over here and y over here. What are the values over here? Okay, like let's say x is 10 and then y is, let's say, 10, something like this. All right, But we need to know exactly what are the coordinates, okay, to form this arrowhead. So let's see how to find the coordinates. So what I want is actually a line like this with the arrowhead like this. All right. So now let's say this point over here. Okay, this point over here, let this be 0, 0. Okay. So now this point over here, we can say it's minus 20 minus 10 over here. All right, because it's going towards the left. So minus 20, and if it goes higher, all right, the position, the y position gets smaller actually. Okay, so if it goes lower, okay, the y position gets more positive. All right, so over here, the s coordinate will be the same, minus 20, and this would be 10. All right, because over here, this would be minus 20, 0 over here. All right, so we can have all these three coordinates, 1, 2, and 3 over here. All right, so let's add this. So the first one would be 0, 0. Okay, then followed by x is minus 20, and y is, oops, should be lowercase y. This is minus 10. Okay, and the next point is x is still minus 20. Y this time is a positive 10. Okay, so now let's add some properties to this polygon over here. All right, so what we can say, we can give it an ID of let's say arrow head over here. All right, and we can give it a stroke color of red, and stroke width, we can make it 3 over here, and a fill. All right, so we can fill it with red color as well. Okay, and we do not want it to be selectable, and we do not want the controls for this. All right, okay, so we also have to identify, okay, or rather we have to specify where to add this arrowhead. All right, so we have to give the top and the left positions for this. So the top would be the pointer dot y position. All right, so pointer dot y is actually the y coordinate of the cursor. Okay, like let's say for the line, we have pointer dot x and pointer dot y. All right, and the left, it will be pointer dot x position. Okay, so now let's add this arrowhead one as well. So arrowhead 1. All right, and we have to request render request all. So render request all over here. Okay, and let's just check whether everything else is okay. What we can also do is to do this over here. All right, we can copy this and write it down over here. Now for the object selectability, all right, we pass to this function, okay, two, all right, values, all right, the ID and the selectability, okay, whether is it true or false. All right, so when I activate this adding single arrow line, okay, and when I add the line with the arrow, I do not want it to be selectable, so that's why I put it as false. But now the ID is different. Okay, they have different IDs. So what we can do is to forego this ID. All right, we can forego this ID over here, and because of this, we have to rectify our function. We have to change our function. Okay, so the object selectability over here, and this as well, we have to change this. So we forego that, and we forego the ID. All right, so we won't have to identify the object by its ID anymore, so this condition would be gone. All right, so now for the object selectability, if the value is true, all the objects will be selectable. Okay, if the value is false, all the objects will not be selectable. All right, so now going back to our function over here, so we have mouse down is true. Okay, let pointer be equals to this. All right, and let's just see what happens. Okay, so over here, all right, when I click on this, as you can see, all right, the arrowhead has been added. Okay, but it has been added at the top left corner. All right, the top left corner of this arrowhead is actually the origin. Okay, but I want to add this arrowhead, okay, at the center. All right, so meaning, all right, the center of the arrowhead must be added on my mouse cursor instead. All right, so what we can do is to change the origin. Okay, so origin X, this would be center. All right, and origin Y, would be center as well. Okay, so now let's check this out. As you can see now, the arrowhead, okay, is at the center. All right, the center of the arrowhead is its origin and is added onto the where the mouse cursor is. All right, so in the next video, okay, we'll talk more about the other two functions. Okay, the start drawing of the single arrow line and the stop drawing of the single arrow line. All right, so see you soon.